packages from Python will get installed with UV-Sync. Okay, I think then that will there is setup. But anyhow, if you have scanned the QR code previously, I think you have the material also there. You can also get all the instructions, right? So, so this is the Claude desktop. I gave like one of the questions saying that give me the schedule of PyCon Hyderabad 2026. There is a PyCon Hyderabad happening in March 2026. So, but I turned off all the things. There is nothing is there. It is a bare question to the model. It said that I can't really find out because my cutoff knowledge is only till January 2025. So, without anything, LLMs, without the context, it's going to be difficult for LLMs to really give you the proper answer. If you look at it, at the bottom it says that if you enable some of these web searches, I can give you a better job rather than just giving an answer, right? So, if you, the same question is asked, but this time you are given the search facility or the tool that it can really use. It can go and search the web and then get the information. Now it was able to really, figure it out when is really happening, a perfect answer that really has come from that. So, the models are only as good as the context given to them. So, LLMs, without the context, I don't think, they can really do a good job. So, context is very, very, very important here. So, and to provide that context, so how this has evolved over a period of time, right? I think if you look at dates from early, before even 2020, it is just, like a RAG, probably the retrieval augmented generation. That piece is still, is not in the RAG world, but the people used to use all the BM25 and vector search and all of them at that point of time. And then scripted interactions. There is no LLM kind of interaction, scripted interactions, and then MCP was not even born at that point of time. 2020, 2022, the RAG termed coined by Facebook, and then this is where people, LLM, if it is there, how do you provide the context to them, right? If you have your own enterprise data and all of them, how do you provide the context? That's where RAG has started. And there is really, how you really chunk the documents, provide the context from the enterprise world is there. So, initial AI agent experiments, but nothing else was really happening. But 2023 is the where I think a lot of RAG, I think how do we really improve the context? I think there are a lot of different ways that RAG can be enhanced is what been done. But OpenAI has released the function calling, which is in June 2023. The OpenAI has put this function calling. So basically, if the LLMs are there, you can attach functions so that you can make decision which function to really call. And in the MCP world, again, early plug-in experiments were, happening. In 2024, where RAG is really getting into, multiple levels of, enhancements, and then parallel function calling was there. And in November 2024, Anthropic has open sourced the MCP concept. So they open sourced it to the whole public. What they were really internally doing for all these years, they have put into the open source. So that's where November 2024 it is started, and then afterwards industry started looking at it, and then there was a lot of rapid growth. We can look at it how it's changed the compared to the other different frameworks available. And in 2026, because agents were there in the 2025 last year, I think agents has started. 2026, I think we have all these things are there, but the major focus within the MCP world is governance and security. So now we have something ready, but how do we really have the more secure as well as the governance piece of it for this one?
Sorry, I have a question.
Sure.
I don't know if you will cover this, but what about other similar protocols like A2A?
Yeah. So Google has released one more, agent-to-agent protocol, which is now. This is within the agent. If you are developing one agent, probably MCP is going to be how you can make use of this within the agent. But if you want to communicate between the agents, there is Google has released one more standard called agent to agent protocol. So I'm not really going to cover anything here at this point of time, but we will even create an agent, and then we will see how we can integrate with the MCP with the agent. We can do that. But I'm not getting into the agent to agent protocol at this point of time. Yeah. I think this is the evolution over a period of time. Now let us understand a little bit before we go to the MCP, what is function calling. So how does it really work, and then what is the difficulty that we really have in really doing this, so that when we really introduce MCP, we understand, oh, the function calling was, you have to do so many things, but now it's a lot simplified when MCP has been introduced, right? So if you look at this diagram, what happens, look at the top. If user sends a query, and users not only send the query, but what he will do is he will attach all the functions to use to that along with the query. So when functions to use means here, these are the description of the function, like what is the function do, what parameters that we pass an argument, and description of all these parameters we put along with the query. And then what LLM will do is, LLM will understand the query and then figure it out which function to use out of these functions, and it will reply back saying that you have to use this function and these are the parameters. Where do we get the values for these parameters? These values are there in the query. Let's take, you are building a simple weather application. You say, can you tell me how is the weather in Dallas? Dallas is the place. For that place, I think we need the weather. So that place is the parameter. That place gets extracted, and it will tell you, what are the forecasts that you need to really call, and then it will give you the parameter as the Dallas or state code Texas. So now it will extract that information as a parameters, and also it will tell which function to really call. Pass it back to the user saying that now you are asking for this information, and you have given me these functions, and this function you need to really call, and this is the parameters that you need to execute. So then what user will take that the function and the parameters, execute the function, get the results, and along with the query send these results, what are the results that really coming out of the function, back to the LLM. So that is the third and fourth step. And when LLM receives not only the query but also the result of the function that gets executed, it will frame the response and send it back to the user. So this much is what is really going in the function call when you really do a simple function call, and user has to orchestrate all these things. It's not that there is some standard which will really happen automatically. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So if I look at older flows that people were calling agentic and using a Glue or Ledger, that was essentially a sequential program where there would be calls to LLMs at various points. Here it's kind of an inversion where you are using the LLM to decide what to do next. Right?
It's not LLM to decide, but LLM, we are giving tools to LLM so that LLM can decide if, it knows that it has to call this function, but that function execution again goes back to the user's responsibility. It will tell you, you execute this function and give me the result. And you take that function, execute it, take the result and give it back to the LLM again.
It essentially gives, the branching is done by the LLM in some sense.
LLM will decide what function to call and what parameters really pass to this particular function. Yeah. So, this is all orchestrated, and also understand that the function getting executed in the client wherever that you are running. For example, if I am doing this on my local laptop, I will run this client and then get the result and send it back to the LLM, right? So that's what is really happening. So now, the way that I think I do it here is like, I don't go all the theory and then we'll start the code at the end. I think we'll do coding also in between. So if you already cloned the repo, the next thing is to look at the function calling exercise, which is like, we look at function calling, how it really works in the real code when you really want to develop it, right? So if I go back to the repo, here, if you clone the repo, there is one folder called function calling. Within that weather.py, there is a script. If you can open that script, you will see this, this is the simple function calling with the OpenAI models. But for that one, you need to add your OpenAI keys. In your environment, if you really take it, you go and add this OpenAI, keys. I think, so anyhow, I'm going to recreate those things later. So probably, so these are the keys. I think you need to put that .env file, which is required. OpenAI API key, OpenAI _ API _ key. So it should be OpenAI _ API _ key equals to the value of whatever that the key. So that is required to be there in that file. And I'll quickly go through. I'll just update the environment variables, right? So we open, it's just open a client. I think this is required to really interact with LLM. And the remaining code is first, I think the same code probably will, when we build something with MCP also, we can use majority of the code, but we don't have to do all the steps that what is really happening here, right? So if you look at here, this is the URLs, this is a simple weather API, US API, wherever, like I think you don't need any API key for this to get the responses, weather responses here. So the first function that we really say is that you give a URL, it will, make a call to that URL and get the response back to the data. That's all. It is just executing that URL with the parameters that we'll pass it on to it, and then it will give me. So we give the URL, and it runs this URL, and the response is given back. The HTTPX is the way that we really execute this URLs, but HTTPX can be used for both sync and async calls. So the next function is a format alert, which is nothing but once you get the response, in the response you take it and then put it into a format so that LLM can really understand that. So you put the event, you put the area, severity, description, instructions. All these things we extract from the response and then put it as a format so that you can give it back to the LLM. Now you look at, this is where the how the function we are defining, right? We define a tools equals to just a list of all these tools is a JSON documents, right? This is a standard structure. You give a type, what is a function, and then name of that function, and you give the description of that particular function, and then parameters which are state. Again it is a string, and then there is a description. So we are constructing all these things and telling you send these tools also along with your query. It means we are giving this all the tools to LLM, so that it can make a decision of which tool to really call when the user query is there, right? So like this, you have to prepare all these, like tools, whatever the tools that we really have, what are the functions that we really have. You prepare those functions, give the description of that function and each parameter and description of that parameters, and you send all these details back to the LLMs, right? So there are two functions here. One is get alerts, another one is the get forecast. And we have given all the descriptions and then each parameter. For example, for get forecast, there are two parameters are there, latitude and longitude. Both we really give it to get the forecast for the particular location, right? So this is the description of the functions now, and these are the actual functions. When you get alerts, give a particular state. This is a US state. If you give a US state, this is the doc string that we are trying to say how it's really going to mean. Again, just the description and then what is the arguments and what is the written values that we get out of this function, right? So this is a simple execution. You don't have to really get into a lot of details, but run this URL, get the response and give it back. Similarly, we have get forecast, which takes latitude and longitude, and then this also run execute the URL and then get the response back. Now this is the input list. This is where the user query, and then we are giving what is the weather forecast in Dallas. That is the user input. If you look at here, open a client, when you really create this object, or execute this particular thing, we are giving which model to use and which tools to really use, what tools are available for the model to take it, and then what is the input query that we are giving it. So when you run this, it knows that okay, this is the query that you are asking, and these are the tools available to me to really figure it out what is if I have to use make use of any of the tool. What it will really give you if you execute this one, in the response you will have which function to call and what are the arguments that extracted from the user input that is there. So in this particular case, what we need is the Texas TX. That's what is required. So what it will do is, again we are parsing that response back from the LLM and trying to figure it out. If there is an item called function call, if the name of that item is going to be get alerts, then you go and execute that response and append to that input list. Or if it is a get forecast function that we are really calling, then we execute that function and then again append that information to the input list. Input list is our initial query, then we are adding a function's output also to the same input list. Again we will go back and run this again call the OpenAI client with the modified input. Modified input is query plus the execution result from the function. So with this model, we are giving some instructions saying that respond only with the weather information generated by the tool, because we don't want to use any general knowledge of the model to really influence the result, influence the output. So give the tools again and then give the input list. So now what is really happening? In this input list contains two things. One is the user query and also the result of the function execution. Now the final output that we really get from the model. So now if you look at the orchestration, you have to define all these tools, give it to the LLM, and when the LLM decides which function to execute, you take that function, execute that function, and again give the input along with the function result. This is what is really happening in the function call. So you can define any number of functions, different type of functions, different tools that we can really give it to the LLM. Any questions so far? So this is what is really happening in the function call. But now we'll get back to a little bit onto the MCP and then see how we can make MCP, how it can standardize this process and also help us to really do it much better than this, right? Okay, so we looked at one of these tools, right? I think if you are developing any of the AI application, multiple applications that you are really working on, and you have to develop these multiple tools, each application we have to integrate that tool set with that particular application. So if I want to use all these 4 different tools, database, Google Drive, and then GitHub integration, and then Slack integration, right? All of them, if you have to do it, is N into M problem, right? If you are developing M applications and there are N systems are there, in that many times you have to really trying to do it. That's what is without MCP that is really happening. But with MCP, what happens? If there is a standard way of doing this one time, and then I can use across all of the applications. I don't have to do it for each of the application. That is what is the MCP is providing you, the capability where you develop this capability once, but you can use across any of the applications. You don't have to develop for each of the applications separately. Okay. So now let's get a little bit into the definition of what is MCP, right? MCP is an open protocol. Basically, it standardizes how AI applications connect to and work with tools and data sources. So it's basically, I have lot of information outside. How do I provide that context back? External system. These are external systems. It could be a database, or it could be API that is there already built in the organization. If I want to provide that back as a context to my LLM, what is the standard way of doing it? If I am developing an application, what is the standard that I need to really follow to do it? It's just a standard, that they have defined. But there are frameworks that are available how to implement that standard. Okay. If you go back and look at the Anthropic documentation, it gives you how you need to really do all these things. That's what they have done it. It's nothing to do with a language, like which language, and all of them. It is just a protocol, a standard, how it has to be implemented. But you can implement in any language that you really want it. And what does it really provide, an MCP? I think these are the 4 key things. Before that, now everybody was trying to do their integrations, right? Now this has led to creation of lot of pre-built integrations. GitHub released their MCP server. Anybody can, they want to really use it, they can use it. Slack has released it. The Google Drive. There are a lot of implementations have really come up. A growing list of this pre-built integrations. We can directly use them. You don't have to really do anything. And there is a standard way to build the custom integrations for all the AI applications. How we can really build it, because there is a standard that is there now. Anybody really goes and then say, okay, now this is the way I need to really build the custom AI applications, right? And there is an open protocol, so anybody is free to use it. So there is no restriction on that. And the flexibility to really change, I think wherever you really go, and then you are really building an application, tomorrow you are building another application, I can take my context from here to there without any major hassle. So these are the major things that really MCP provides, right? Just a simple analogy. I think you have seen REST APIs, right? REST APIs. REST APIs, REST also is a standard, right? How do we really interact? If there is a web application, if you want to interact with the backend, REST API will help you how to interact with that. Similarly, LSP, language server protocol. Basically, if there is, like your code suggestions and all what you get in the IDEs and all, these are all really coming from this, LS piece, which is standard across. Once you build it, you can use it for PyCharm or Visual Studio Code or any, IDEs. And similarly, MCP is the standard way to interact with AI applications with external systems. So if I want to integrate my external system with an AI application, MC define that standard. So that's an analogy of different standards. So this shows starhistory.com. I generated this from that. If you give different type of GitHub repos to it, I think it will tell you over a period of time where is the people really showing the interest, which component or which area that they're showing the interest, right? I've taken some of them which are probably may not be 100% one-to-one comparison, but these are also having a lot of function calling capabilities and all of them they have built inside these things. If you look at it, in November 2024 this has been released by Anthropic, and in February there was a workshop by Mahesh Murag, who is that from Anthropic guy, and he is the one who is man behind creating all the MCP standard, right? So he did a workshop in February on MCP. I think it's if you have time, I think I strongly recommend to go and have a look at that workshop. I think it really covers from the bottom with all the details of it. Yeah, it's on YouTube. I think you can search for Mahesh Murag, Anthropic, you will get that workshop, you will get the details. I mean, it's there in my materials. I've given the link also towards the end. Okay. So if you look at from that February onwards, how this interest has grown. Obviously, anything that really goes up, probably after some time it's flatten out. But the interest comparatively to the other things that are there, it's is increased a lot. I mean, just to say that there is a lot of traction that has been gained by MCP early last year, somewhere in February. Okay, so now if you want to, there are different audiences, and then how it's going to help different audiences, right? For AI application developers, I think literally there is zero additional work. You don't have to do anything. You just plug in. If there is already an MCP server is there, you can start plug into your this one and you can start using it. For tool and API developers, once you really build it, you don't have to really worry about it. A lot of people can really adopt the same thing. For end users, obviously you can build more powerful and context-rich applications. I think even for enterprises, I think this gives a clear separation of the AI product and the your other things, right? So I mean, people can really focus on the MCP piece of it, and then still whatever that they're trying to do it, they can do it. For example, in Oracle, I mean, lot of them have implemented MCP as an internal service in the enterprises rather than opening a lot in the public. There are lot many of them in the public also, but the adoption is more towards the internal usage of the enterprises. So in the Oracle, they have implemented something like all these bugs are there. They put an MCP server on top of it. So any user who really want to understand what is this bug, how is it related, and all of them, they can really go and interact with it. I think now anybody in the organization, if they want to understand a bug, for a particular bug that is there, how is it related, where is it really coming from, and LLM can really understand all these things, provided the context of this bug, context of the code and everything. It can give you a lot of information around that, right? So they have implemented something like this. Now somebody who is building the MCP server is a different team altogether. They don't really have to really worry about how the other things are really happening. And those other products which are building their products, they can make use of this MCP servers. There is a complete clear distinction. It is not that the same team is building both MCP as well as the engineering piece of it. It is not required to be done. So somebody develop this capability and then you can start using in your applications.
So it's like everybody is publishing their own API.
Not everybody, in the sense within the organization, which is going to be relevant for the whole organization, there is one team who can really build and then put it, and then others can really make use of it. So they are not really building an AI applications. They are building the AI applications, but they are not building the core, the tools and everything required to run for that AI application. So that can be done by a different team altogether, because there is a standard way of calling it, and then how you can standard way of integrating it. That's what is the segregation of responsibilities between the the MCP core team and the other this one. Okay, so that is on the what is MCP, like how it's originated and all of them. But now let's look a little bit on the architecture of the MCP, right? What different components are there in the MCP? So there is a host and there is a client. Host is nothing but you are building an application, that is a host, and you are building an agent, that is going to be a host, or any IDE that you are really using is going to be a host. And in the host there are multiple clients. So I'm interacting with multiple servers also at the same time, right? I think if I'm interacting with database to get some information, there could be another MCP server, and if I'm interacting with some other, like this one to really get some other information, there is another server, right? So there are two different clients work with the servers to really do it. There are multiple clients can have within the same host. So the client communicates with the MCP server. This is a server client architecture, client server architecture, basically client server architecture. So the client communicates with this server using certain transport layers and then the protocols, right? So the transport layer is the JSON RPC 2.0. That's what is the transport layer between the MCP client and the MCP server. And there are different protocols are there. I think you can use, for if it is a MCP server is there in our local, you can use STDIO, standard input output. Or if it is a remote, you can use two options. One is HTTP with SSE, server sent events, and the HTTP streamable HTTP. Actually, in fact, if like I think for the latest standard, somewhere they mentioned that HTTP SSE is going to be, it's not a recommended way. The recommended way used to use the streamable HTTP. Okay, so there are three ways that we can, protocols that we can use it: STDIO, HTTP SSE, and then streamable HTTP. And the recommended way, if you are using a remote server, is the streamable HTTP. Okay. And STDIO is for the local. I think when you do the exercises, we can use the STDIO because local we are doing it. But obviously, it's very simple to really replace with streamable HTTP once it becomes a URL. And then, it's like an endpoint where you can really, hit that endpoint to really get your response. Okay. And MCP servers are the ones which are lightweight programs which expose the specific capabilities through MCP, right? That protocol. So they expose the capabilities, and then we look into what are the capabilities that we can expose through an MCP server. Just like a little this one. If you look at this standardized protocol, how it is really bridging the gap between, between these two things, right? Chart interfaces, IDEs, and a lot of other applications are there. And then what are the different things that we can really integrate? Data and file systems. File systems you can integrate any database that you can really go and integrate. Development tools like Git, Sentry, etc. And then also productivity tools like Slack, Google Maps, Google Drive. All of them we can integrate. Any one of these things we can integrate through this. Okay, so now, this is very clear. MCP client invokes tools. It will invoke the tools. If the tools are available, LLM needs to really invoke the tools, or queries for resources. And if there are resources that application needs it, you can query for the resources. Or if there are prompts are there, prompts are, you can call it a prompt template, right? I think if you have a prompt, I think because prompt is very, very, important in the LLM, how you really, provide these instructions to get your response, right? So if there is a tested prompt which has been already tested by in the organization, you can create that as a template so that anybody who really wants it, through the MCP client, they can use that, take the prompt, replace the values, and then you can use that prompt. So there is a prompt template is there exposed by the MCP server, and then you can interpolate that prompt template. Interpolate means you have a query and there is a prompt. I think you can take the values from the prompt and then put into the query and into the template and run it. So MCP server exposes tools, resources, and prompt template. These are the three things that really exposes by the MCP server. So let us get a little bit into the details. What are tools, right? Tools are the functions that can be invoked by the client. These are just the functions. And what kind of examples are, if you want to search the flights, send some messages, or create some calendar events, whatever. I think any action that we are really performing, it's a function is there. It can can be invoked by the MCP client. An important thing is these are model controlled. What does Meaning, what does it really mean? So tools are given to the model, but model will decide which tool to really execute. Okay, that's what it means by model controlled. But resources, on the other way, are read-only data. It could be a file or it could be an API. Anything is a resource. The resource also can be, some of them are static resources and some of the dynamic resources. Resources. For example, I want to get an inventory of an item, right? I pass the item and then it will give me the inventory. So, but the item is dynamic. I think item can really change from query to query, but it is still as a resource. Similarly, I have documents, I can expose them as resources, but these are read-only data. And these are controlled by the application. Application will decide what context I need to really pass to the LLM, right? I think which context means like which document or which API I need to really call to get this data, and all of them is going to be done by the application, not by the model. And the last one is the prompt templates. These are the predefined templates for AI interactions. Actually, these are the time-tested templates there in the organization. If you know this prompt really works for this kind of particular thing, that you can expose this as a template, and the user can, these are user controlled. Basically, user will decide, oh, now I want to use this prompt, so he'll take that prompt, he'll put all the values into it, and then he'll execute that prompt so that he'll get the result. So that you don't have to really do that again, research on how to do this prompting to really get the response from the LLM. So there are three things: tools, resources, and prompts. And prompt, it's a prompt templates basically, and within that there are two types. One is static, other one is the dynamic one. Static one is just a content, like it's a document, list of things or whatever is available. Dynamic is based on the like an inventory of an item, or if you want to get a weather for a particular thing, you can even, that also as a kind of resource, you can prompt template, you can really put it. Okay, so this is the user control. So okay, so initially when they released lot of these third party integrations, right, what happened is, if you go back and look at it, okay, I need to stop this one. In the GitHub, they used to really track. If this is the model context protocol servers, there is a GitHub repo. If you go back and look at all these third party, tools are there. These are all the different, server. There's top list, but there are third party servers are there. If you look at it, there are so many of these third party servers are there, right? For each of them, they have really developed as, MCP server, and they have put it in the public. So if you really want, you can start using it. I think one of the important, we'll cover it later, but I just wanted to mention that it's not that any MCP server available is safe to really use it. So there could be a lot of things like malicious things will be there. So in the enterprises, I think they are very, very cautious. Lot of enterprises that really don't approve to really use all these MCP servers, right? I think whatever, because there's so many of them are there. There is no way to really say which one is good, which one is really bad. If you look at some of these things, right, I think, for example, if you have a Android app is there, so Google will certify that, when they really push this app, they will do a lot of testing to ensure that proper things are there, and then there is a governance on top of it, right? So that this is not a malicious app that can really, if you really go to the Play Store and install it, there is very, very, very less chances that you really get a, like malicious, like an app, right? There is nothing like this right now. There is no governance on top of it. This is the list of all the servers somebody has published. Anybody can go and start using it. And then there could be a lot of, this one is there. This is still evolving. It is not, completely done. I think they are still figuring it out how to do it. But there is one more level of improvement on the MCP registry.
So right now, you would suggest that we individually decide these are the servers that we need, and this particular implementation looks safe.
Yeah. See, particularly if somebody is released like a GitHub, right, there are very, very less chances that there is a malicious software inside the GitHub, there. So those things are fine. But there are so many of them are there. You may be very, somebody is released, like how to, connect with the databases, release something, right? So you need to be always careful and look at the code, understand it, what they have really done before you really start using it. Because there is no certification authority, somebody who is really certified that this tool is safe to use. So right now it is not there, but I think they are getting there. So if you go to the next slide, this is where, if you look at it, this is the MCP registry. They started this MCP registry. This is like, I think the architecture, maybe I'll present it here, I think it will be a little better. So if you look at this MCP registry here, right, so there are MCP server developers, right, those who are really developing, they push all these things to the official MCP repository. But this is need not to be directly, all the things are there, but they are references to the PyPy, NPM or Docker, whatever. It could be a Docker image, or it could be an NPM package, or it could be Python package, right? You can reference to this one. But the registry will have all the metadata, that is what is what is there as part of this particular publishing. And these things are being again like pulled into different there is a specific MCP registries like Anthropic, GitHub, Microsoft. They have their own repositories. They can really pull it from this MCP central MCP registry or official MCP registry. And then there is something like in between, which is like a if you know Artifactory and all, JFrog Artifactory and all, I think these all the artifacts are stored where you can pull it from one place. Either it could be enterprise or it could be public, right? From there you can start installing it, so that there is I think they're still working on it. I think here when you're really publishing it, if there is a way to really make sure that this is not having a malicious, and then certify that this is okay to really kind of use, right? So that kind of things are still evolving. This is not that this is the final. This is still like in the very early stages of the implementation. So
if the use case is simple enough, would you recommend we roll our own server? Like if we have a
you mean to say internally for your user? Yeah, I think that is actually one of the major, and like a lot of people are using in that fashion actually, in fact, at this point of time.
So rather than use a third party.
No, third party, if it is,
If it is Git, who is releasing it for GitHub, which is releasing it for Git, then we can probably trust it. But if it is some,
I think either you have to do due diligence. I think you make sure that the code is okay. I think you can start using it. And some of them are like this, right? It is not that you directly connect to the server, but some of them are open source their code. There are a lot of GitHub repos are there. They give the code itself. They don't really give you the MCP server. But you can take that code and you can implement it within your premises.
right.
You got it, what I'm trying to say. Like, so there are two different ways. One is somebody is running an MCP server, you can connect directly to the MCP server. And some people really build this and then put as a code in the GitHub. You can take that whole code, you can run as an MCP server within your like premises, and then you can use it. So
What is your typical thought process, like how you choose?
rather than my thought process is like the industry adoption is like majority of them are using right now as an internal MCP servers rather than lot of public, because the reason behind is, as I mentioned, there is a lot of governance and security concerns are there. This is not really resolved. That's the reason people have not adopted. You can do a toy example or whatever, but in that, if really go to the like enterprise and then you want to implement it, and then there are a lot of checks and balances that you need to really make sure, right? You cannot just go and take something. So people are not ready to really adapt to the public servers yet, I think. So, but a lot of them are using their internal. They have developed something. Okay, so I have a quiz, but I think we'll take it now. We don't have to do the quiz now. We'll come back. I think after covering some of these things, we can come back. So now we have understood what is MCP, how it really works, and what is architecture behind it, and all of them. Right now, how do I really build it? So to building it, there are two. This one, I think. Let me start with this fast MCP first. Actually, this is started when I think somewhere in November 30. If you look at it, November 24th was open source, but November 30 there is a package already. Probably it's already been worked within the Anthropic, and they have put into the PyPy registry also. The fast MCP is started there. It's matured a lot, and this is actually very good. And if you are really using any production use cases, and these complicated things are there, I think it's better to use this package rather than the official version of this MCP, right? The official version of the MCP here. So this MCP package which is actually a clone of this. I think they have taken MCP 1.0 and they have created this official version of the MCP package. So now this is MCP is there which you can use it, but this is the bare MCP. But whereas this has lot many more things than this the MCP like around it. Whatever is required, lot of things are there. I think for example if say authentication, client server proxying, lot of different things are being there within the generating servers from the REST APIs. If you have a REST API, you don't have to write a lot of code again. You can really generate the your MCP server using the REST APIs. So like that, there are a lot of different things are there in the fast MCP. My suggestion would be to really use this if you have an enterprise adoption or you are building something production grade applications. Okay. So any questions? Yeah, okay. So I think logically we can I think the next exercise is to really start working on the this building an MCP server. We will take the same example as what we are doing in the function calling, and then we will try to go and look at it how we can do it, and also we look at it how we can integrate this with the IDEs like Visual Studio Code I can show, and Cloud Desktop. I have Cloud Desktop, but if you don't have a Cloud Desktop, I think it needs a license and all of them. I think you have to buy this one, otherwise it will not work with the Cloud Desktop, because I don't think there is any free version of the Cloud Desktop. But whereas even VS Code, the GitHub Copilot, I think they have some free versions of it. Probably you may want to use it.
Cloud Desktop, I tried running MCP once, like just a toy example. I had problems with deployment, like I was trying to use Docker to
No, but now if this code we can run it. Yours is Windows or Mac? Okay, Mac, then there is no problem. Windows also there is no problem, but there is a little different because it works differently in both these two things. So we need to do it. We can work on that now. I think we have this same example. I will show you both Visual Studio Code as well as the Cloud Desktop. We can do it. So maybe you can if still if there is you're downloading something, your download everything is set. I think your environment everything is set. Okay, good. So let's get on to this one, or maybe what we can do is we can take some 5-minute break and then we can come back again and we'll start. So, This is where the break is, no?
Yeah, it should be 0.
That is this was.
Okay, this should be good, no issues. What happened? Can they cancel that we're taking this? We'll be back in 10 minutes. After this one.
Are you in college or are you okay? Both of you are starting.
Yeah, no issues. Okay, wait, we have the break screen. We'll be back soon. This should be good. Can you just leave my pots if they can come here?
What?
My pots should be fine. Okay, should be good. It's just a camera, something.
We'll start? Yeah. Okay. So if you clone the repo and then if you go to this directory called function, not a function calling is done, my first MCP server. So again, if I go back to, okay, no, that's what I think. It looks like camera is off. I think you'll, but anyhow, you can listen. So what we'll do is we'll create two functions. The same functions what we have seen in the function calling itself. Get alert, and then it takes a 2-letter code, and then get forecast. It will take longitude and latitude as this one, and then do it. So, and then after building this, I think we'll integrate with this, and also we create a client and run it with the Python. I think you have to rotate that. Okay. No, you did not do it. It's on. This is on. Yeah. Wait for him to come. There won't be advertisement otherwise. Yeah, no problem. So I'll just quickly walk through the code. Maybe we can try to execute it. So I mean, these are all the OpenAI client. This is to run the OpenAI, and then the HTTPX is for making a API calls, and .env is load.env. I think make sure that you have the in the weather. No, it is in the weather client. Yeah, weather client. Not this one. Sorry. Okay. Oops. Weather server.py. Okay. So okay, here what I'm using is I'm using the MCP client. It is not the fast MCP. But once this is done with anyone, the client can be anything. Client can be even with fast MCP I can connect, because server and this is a client need not to be on the same this one, right? So I can use fast MCP to really connect to this client. So right now I'm using MCP, but the exercise that you would do towards the end of it, we will use the fast MCP. Okay. Actually, in fact, if you look at it, even the MCP is there. MCP server.fast MCP, it import that fast MCP, because the same thing, as I mentioned, 1.0 was forked into MCP. I think they are trying to change this a little bit now. So now this is the logging as usual. It is just a, I mean, one more thing is better not to use the print statements here. I think there is some problem with the buffer and all. I think you might run into issues when you really doing it. So don't use any of the print statements. Better you always start a logger and then log all the things whatever you really wanted, right? So logging, and we create an MCP. This is a server we created with the name fast MCP, instantiate with the name, and then it will create an MCP, right? And if you look at, this is the same URL that we have used earlier, same thing, even the same request, but this time this have made async functions. This is not a synchronous function. So basically what it means is you just initiate the request, but you don't really wait. You can the client can really move on to the other things, but whenever the response is ready, it will go back and pick up the response. It's an async. It's not in a synchronous. It's not going to wait for the response to really come immediately. So when you define this one, again similarly async with HTTP client, we are calling that URL and then getting the response back. Okay. Now this is the same format that we have seen in the function calling. There is no difference. But now, how do you expose a tool in the MCP server?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Async is just to make sure that if the user, the client's code wants to call 2 or 3 different servers, it is not blocking. That's all.
That's all. You are absolutely right. I think you make multiple calls, and then if something, let us take the database call, right? Probably it might take time. I don't have to really wait. If I have to execute 3 different things, I don't have to wait till the database really comes back in sequential. So this will keep happening. I can make another call with another server to really get the data. Meanwhile, it's parallel. You can do that. So it's not parallel, but it's basically non-blocking. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So MCP.tool is the decorator that we have, which will make this function as now as a tool available to the when the server is like exposed. This get alerts will become a one of the tool that is capability that is exposed to the MCP server, right? So the how you make it, you just make it simple. MCP.tool as a decorator, you put it and run the write the function. This is the same function that we were really did earlier, but this time I am only putting this decorator so that it becomes a tool, exposed as a tool.
So, in the previous case, when you had the tool definition, you had a lot of, you had a JSON for that object for here, does it pick it up from the?
Exactly, I think very good thing. So we are not defining what this function is doing it, but where does it really go and pick it up what this function is doing it. Right? That's where it is very, very important to have this your doc string. When you define this function, you put all these things, get weather alerts from US state, and then that is what is the definition of the function. It takes state as an argument, the 2-letter code, example California, and then returns formatted string of weather alerts or a message if no alerts are found. So it's very clear of what is input going, what is output, and what is this function do. Once you have this one, no, it will construct that JSON what you are really looking at from all this information. I don't have to really do it anything myself as such. But it's very important that you clearly do this, doc string, so that it will really know what is the function description, what is the arguments, and what is the returns, everything that you really write it clearly. No, this is not LLM. I think this doc string is stores. Probably you can take it from here in the information. Yeah, there is no LLM, kind of thing here. Yeah. When the tool is exposed, I think the data really goes from here to the LLM, and LLM will pick it, understand from this, right? I think this data goes back to LLM. It's not that it is not here. I think this data definition of this one is sent it back to the LLM so that LLM will understand. See, at the end of the day, LLM should really understand this, what is this function is doing, and what is these different parameters that we are really giving it, right? But you don't have to define them explicitly as separate JSON. So this is the same URL, and then you make a call with the URL, and you get the data, and this is all just the you just figure it out whether there is a response, proper response back. If there is no proper response back, you send a message like this, or if there is a response, you format that all the data and then send it back as a list of alerts, right? Whatever is there. That is what is really happening here. It becomes a string. You just put all of them join with this kind of thing so that it will know there are multiple lines within the alerts, right? Similarly, I have for MCP the get forecast also. I have another tool defined here, mcp.tool, and then you can look at the same thing. Get the weather forecast for a location, latitude and longitude, returns formatted string of a weather forecast or an error message. The same, I think this is the same code as what we have looked in the function calling. There is no difference as such. The only difference is I have put an MCP tool as a decorator so that when you run this server, it knows that I have to expose this function as a tool. Clear? Okay, now, I mean, if you run this particular file, what happens is there is multiple ways you can run it. The transport, you can mention it here. What transport, like you want to use it, right? stdio is one way, or SSE, if you put it, it becomes HTTP SSE, or you can streamable HTTP. So there are 3 modes. I can modify this and then run it. We will see that, but right now we will use stdio so that I am running in the local so that I can integrate with any of the clients, right? So I think this is what is there. So this is the server. So how do we really run it? I can simply look at this. So go to the directory. So because you have installed with this one, you want to run uv run Python whether server.py. Actually, because MCP client, it will not show you anything as such, but it's running. But there's nothing will really show you, but it's running. But we don't have to even run it because there is no point in running here. Because in stdio, I think when you integrate with any of the IDE, it will invoke that and then it will get the response. I don't have to really do anything here. I'm just only showing it. You can run this. So if you have any syntactical or any other errors are there, it will throw you error here so that you can correct them before you do it. But I think we don't have to run it. I can say, terminate this process.
So if
Yeah.
it is HTTP over SSD or streamable, then
You have to run it.
you essentially have a microservice run, which is this server. But otherwise, it's a direct invocation. It's almost a
Yeah, stdio is a little different. I think you directly invocation. But if it is either SSC or a streamable HTTP, you have to keep run that process somewhere, initiate the process so that it will really, the communication is through HTTP, right? I think it has to be running somewhere, otherwise it will not really work. So yeah, that's true. So now what we will do is, now this is in the directory. Look at this directory where it is there, because this is what is you need to really configure. Maybe you can configure. If you go to Visual Studio Code, if I go to the Visual Studio Code here, so if I open this, if you have good GitHub Copilot here already, I think it looks, okay. So how do you know whether this is there or not? What tools are available to this one? I think there is a icon here, tools, right? If I click on it, it will show me all these different tools are there. See, already, I have already added in my this one, so you can see stocks here, weather here, all these things, and built-in pylons, MCP server and Python MCP, all these things are there, right? So these are the MCP server available to me. What I'll do is, instead of that, if I want to do something, I think you may have to install a plugin also here. I think, what are the plugins? Sorry. MCP servers plugin I think is required. Yeah, GitHub Copilot, basically not that. GitHub Copilot is required here. I think if you are not seeing this one, I think you have to install the GitHub Copilot. If you already have it, then there is no problem. So, okay. Okay, now, Shift Command P, I think, or Shift Control P, whichever. If you look at, there is an MCP add server. If you search for this MCP add server, you will get this. So if you click on the add server here, it will ask you different ways that you can add it. One is the command, other one is the HTTP SSC or HTTP server, right? HTTP SSC, right? So right now the implementation is only for these two. So if I can put command here, the command, it is just a command that you want to really run it. UV run, okay. Okay, I think, sorry, you have to give Python, sorry. UV run. No, UV run directory, sorry, directory. And then you put your, your directory. Python, and then whether server dot py. So this is the command that we are going to use it. So when you do this one, it automatically adds this command and creates one entry into the MCP, JSON MCP. UV run -- directory. We are trying to say that run this command in this particular directory, Python, and then whether _ server.py. This is the one which I need to really run it. This is what I need to add this, right? So when I say enter, it will do it, but I am not going to do that enter because I have already added in my list. So but I can show you where this one is there. Go to the tools again. If you go to the weather here, okay, there is a,
It says I install it on the workspace.
you can, up to you, a global or workspace. You can install for workspace. You don't have to install as globally also. Yeah. It will create it in different place so that it's not, when you open another workspace, it will not be available. It is only for this workspace it will be available.
Then we created the MCP.json.
Yeah. So that's what I'm showing it. Now if you come here, when you click on the tools, you will see all these things, whether there is a weather, like server will be there. And then if you click on it, you will see the AC, that same MCP.json, whatever is that, right? So I think we need to be, okay, I think there is MCP run is not required because I think is okay. But this is also fine. Our Python run also is fine. There are multiple ways of running it. There is no one single way. Even you can put fast MCP also is run, there is a command. So I'm installing this as a directory, changing to this. I think it should be like this only. Just check whether it is like this only. It's a type is stdio, command is uv, and args is directory. Users, what are the directory that where your directory you installed it, and then run whether server.py. I think you can remove these things. Instead of MCP, you can put Python, or if you put MCP, you put MCP run. Okay. So once you have this one, now you can go back and ask these questions, right?
So when you click on the add server, on the bottom right, there was
No, you can be there. Sorry.
there's the add server thing. Do I need?
I think it should be. No, it's already running. You don't have to do it. No, you don't need to do anything, I think.
Sure.
This is already running. I think this is already running here. If you look at the status, it's running here. So that's why we'll see. If you come back here, no, even when you come back here, so now we say, because I have these tools available, when I give the user query here, now it look for, what tools I can really do it. Now it sees, if you look at here, it says that when I say what is the weather in Dallas, Texas, it's asking me get forecast weather MCP server, and this is the input that it will pass. So where did we get this latitude and longitude? But I have not given in the user query, right? So this is where the LLM is trying to figure it out. I think it's based on this knowledge. It will say, I know Texas locations are this, and then it knows that I have to pass longitude and latitude instead of the state, and it has given those coordinates to it as an this one. So now
If I have another tool installed with the latitude longitude for a place, it would use that tool.
no, if the tool is not there, if you whenever
It is there, it would use the tool. But
Ah.
now it's using the LLM knowledge.
no, you don't need to. I mean, it depends. See, for example, if you say what is the weather for Texas state, and longitude is this and latitude is this, if you give it, even if you give some wrong values, it will use that values, because that's what you are given it as a input to it, right? But if the LLM is like, the advantage here is, even though if there's some information is not there, LLM will interpret what is the required by the function, and it will convert if it is as a knowledge. If you don't have a knowledge, it will say I cannot really do it, or maybe it will give null values. It will not work. You're right. For example, if you tell me, you have implemented something, but you say that what is the weather in Bangalore here now, right? Because this weather API only works for US states, and we don't have two-letter code state. We have something KA Karnataka, we can put it, but it may not work. I think you can try it out. What is the weather in Bangalore? It may not work properly because this API itself will not give you that kind of thing. Or it may be it's a US state we have given it. It might tell you I cannot. It will not really work. I don't know what response you got it. Okay, so now latitude and longitude is passed, and then now it is asking you, this is a very important thing, right? It's asking you want me to execute this function. So why is it really required? I can run it directly, right? But this is where you look at it, whether what kind of information that you are really passing, and then is it really okay to really execute. I can give allow once, allow this session, allow this purpose, always allow. I can modify this setting, but I think or you don't even have to really skip this also. But when I say allow here, what it does is, now it has taken this particular tool, execute the information, got the result. Now it is formatted for me to really understand in a human readable language. This is tonight is clear, Saturday is like sunny, Saturday night, Sunday, whatever, all the forecast that has been given now. So I mean, how do we look at here? Look at here, right? What tools are available on all of them? You can click on this one and the tools, and then go back and look at what are the functions available and get errors. Yeah. Any questions, sir?
And obviously this is the raw data there was some raw data which came from with API call that was sent to the LLM and it formatted it. I'm seeing some.
Here, this is that you can see here, right? So this is actually, you have all the data, right? I think this is the input. If you click on that get forecast function, right? This is the function call. So it made the function call. This is the input, this is the output, this is the result, their formatted result. This has gone to LLM as an input.
So right now the output that I think the API output would be the same for both of us.
Yeah, it should be. It should be the same.
Output is different, probably because of the underlying LLM. Like, do we have any control over that?
You can modify, right? I think you have you can go and change what are the when.
No, I'm saying the amount of like you are getting a very summary report. I'm getting the full like long sentences and all.
Yeah, I think it all depends on what kind of temperature settings and all of them for your model, and the depends on the model. Like I think, yeah, you're right. I think
In this case, you probably can't control it, but with the client, I can control it.
no, you can control it. I think basically what we are really trying to say is you can okay. You can ask this question in such a way, control in the sense like you can go and say, for example, what you want. Get me weather for okay, let us see what happens. I think I can give, because when I give it, it will understand only for Sunday. I am really mentioning it. I don't want all the details. You just give me only because already there is now if you look at my response, it's only for Sunday it has given me response. I think you can control that behavior based on the prompt that you really do it. However you want it, you summarize it, you want it, or you convert this temperatures into centigrade and give it. You can do all the stuff and then it will do that piece, I think, for you. So, but this is the only as an input to that model that is going. But what output you really wanted, you can put in the prompt and then do it. But now it's not executed again here. The reason is there is a cache, because I am asking the same thing again. It's not executing this function and again going back and getting. It's already having that as a context, and then it's giving me the answer directly from the context. But if I open a new chart and again do it, I think it will go off again. It will start working from the beginning. I think this is on the IDE, but let us look at a little bit on the Claude desktop also, right? You want to do it in the Claude desktop also, right? I think you can. I mean, I can do the two of them so that this is.
I remember like we had to create. I'll please run through it.
Yeah.
But I'll just watch.
Okay. Yeah. So if you go back and look at the connectors here, these are all the different connectors available to you. You can enable, disable all of them in the Claude desktop, right? I think I don't want this file system to be disabled. I can disable it or enable it. These are the tools available, but I can enable, disable. I have that this one. So if I go to manage connectors, it will open this development setting. These are all the different things, but I can go to the developer, right? These are the different servers that are available configured. If I go to edit config, I think this is a Claude desktop config.json file. It will open, and I can open with Visual Studio Code. Where is it? Okay. So this is the Claude desktop. I think this is also similar, exactly same. There is no difference as what. I think you can go back and put that. The only difference is this Claude desktop is an application running on your desktop. It may not know UV. So you need to give the full path of the UV. You cannot just give UV. It will not work. It will give you error. If I do my weather, I am giving the full path where my UV is there. And then the same thing is remaining, all the things are same. Arguments, directory, give the directory and then run, and then weather server.python. That's all. So no difference, right? I think this is the server, and then these servers are available. If I go back to, I can close this one. Sorry, not required. Okay. So if I go back to my chart,
So
yeah,
the structure of the JSON was very similar. So
yeah, it's similar.
is it also part of the spec or?
Actually, you are right. I think it's supposed to be standard, but it is not standard across the IDs. I think some IDs expect I think the structure is everything is similar, but that MCP servers at the top, right? When you looked at here, I don't know where was this. Okay, let me. Sorry. No, I think I can open that. Where is the tools are there, right? I can directly open it here. Yeah. So if you look at here, this, see here, it's not. It is servers. It is not MCP servers. I think in the Cloud desktop it is going to be MCP servers, I guess. So these MCP servers. I think the remaining everything is same, but that this standard, I think the way that read it here from is MCP servers, whereas in the other place it is server. So there minor difference, but not major, like difference between these two. Yeah. Now I can still, go back to the chart here and say, this is the same. There is no difference. But please understand that these clients are the way that you are really calling, MCP, how to make use of the MCP is being done within this particular application. Otherwise, it's not that, not that all of the things are support MCP also, right? If you go to another client, something else, and then say another IDE, and if you say that no, I want to run an MCP client, it may not be supported there. It has to be supported by this particular, application. So there are a lot of them are integrated now, but they still not all of them are integrated with MCP, right? You may not see that MCP available in all of the clients. Oh, I think probably it is not use the tool, I guess. Whether sometimes I think you have to quit and restart whenever you. Okay. Oh, Sonnet 4.5. I think it's directly not executing the tool. Let me. And email the web search. Sometimes this web search also is a problem.
Or was it also using the web?
Web search, yeah, I think that's a. Okay, so now, the forecast was done. Weather alerts, where I really particularly say when the other weather alerts are there, actually I think I should have used a statement like now. It don't have the current information for it, right? In probably sometimes the prompt also it makes sense. Now it is asking get the forecast weather from this one, allow once, and then it will execute and give it. I think it's important that we sometimes it's a current weather, if I really mention, it means that the current information is not there unless it searches either the web or it has to execute the tool to get the current information.
So, like if there are similar tools chain on the same application, there might be
Problem.
conflict.
Yeah, conflict. And then you have to explicitly give a prompt of what to use. I think that you can say that. You can use this tool to really, like use these tools provided. Or the other way is, if your similar things are there, disable one of them. Don't add any all of them. And I think you need to give whatever is really required to that particular program. So I think these are the two integrations. And then the other one is, I think I have quickly. Okay, let me. Okay. I will run it first and then client. There is a Python client here. Oops. Maybe let me look at it. What is there inside the client? Okay. So look at here, right? I think let us look at this piece now. So there is a client that I have written. This is a similar thing, but I think we are telling we use this http.localhost. Like 8000 SSC. So if I want to run this, what I'll do is I'll take this one, replace this with SSC here, save this file. So when I run now, if you look at here, there is a process that I started on 8000 port here, right? So now I'm going to the other one here. I'm looking at this client. So this server weather client, localhost SSC. I'm listening here. Get the tools, execute it, and then print the result, right? So let us look at this. I mean, this is what I'm directly giving the tool here. I think I'm not giving the prompt here. Because this is not that through LLM. I'm just giving the tool and trying to execute it. That's all. So now UV run weather client.py. If you look at it, I mean it has found all the tools and then executed that, and then there is no result active else for Texas. I think you can say Massachusetts. I can change. I can run. Maybe some alerts might be there. I'm not sure. Okay, there is so much of alerts are there for the Massachusetts, I think so. So, I mean the point here is, you build a server, MCP server. Either you can integrate with any of these IDE tools like Visual Studio Code or Cloud Desktop if it is local, or even if it is running outside remotely also you can configure, or you can write a Python program that you can connect to this server and try to get the tools and execute the tools. I think we will see one more example where it's not only executing the tool, but we will work with the LLM directly, how to pass the information and get the response from the LLM. Okay, so I think that is there. Let me go back to my presentation. Is anything, any questions? No.
Like what I need to tell the LLM is give the context of what the tools, what functionalities the tools expose, right?
Yeah.
In your code for the server, for the client, you have this part when you are looking at the client list of tools, right? That has to be added as a context to the prompt that I sent to the server, to the LLM.
No, you don't. You don't have to do all these things. But this is here. No, we don't have to. When you really use all the frameworks that are really available, they will do all the job for you. The only thing is you need to say, this is the MCP server running, I think you know, like you say that the tools that are there, you get it, you pass the tools back to as a, if that depends on which type of model or what client you are working. So some of them, for example, OpenAI client, if I look at it, when I create a response, I can ask saying that this is my query, this is the model, and these are the tools available to it. The tools can come from here, you can query and do it. But if you are using any of the applications like Visual Studio Code and all of them, they will do everything for you. You don't have to really do anything, because they will underline go and call that, get all the list of resources, and then keep it ready. You know, you don't have to really attach anything, you know, like manually there. But when you are defining or creating a client, at that point of time, you need to figure it out what are the tools that are available exposed by this server, pass the tools back to the LLM when you are querying it. Is that clear?
So essentially, from the client side, I need to. I'm going to make I get a user input. I'm going to send that user input to the LLM. With that, I should also send the list of tools. Right?
Yeah, tools is what is required. Yeah.
This I should just get as you have.
Exactly. Okay. So the only difference there is, as I mentioned earlier, if you do a function calling, the function call get executed in the local. For example, if you have a remote server, you are using it, right? MCP server. So there is a communication between. Now let us take LLM. You go back and tell, I want to get an inventory of this item, right? The inventory of item is a remote server, MCP server, which is running somewhere else, and you want to get that back. So this function call gets executed in the remote server, not local. That's the difference. So
But essentially, what the first thing that I'll get back from the LLM is the tool to be used and what parameter. So I'll have to just use a call tool thing and basically just call the appropriate tool.
yeah. I don't have to do anything. If you are doing it to LLM, for LLM you should only tell what tools are available, as like this one. I think it will make a decision of what tool to call and how to really call it. I mean, it will not call the tools, but it will give you which tool to call and what parameters to really execute.
Essentially, get something like essentially this is the thing I need to.
In the function calling, if you have looked at it, I think, you know, if you go back and I can show again here. Okay, so if I go get alerts, right? If you look at, this is the request it is made, but this request, that how did we really generate the state equals to MA, this is the one which is generated by the LLM. LLM has told you call this get alerts function, and this is the parameters you need to pass, and it is given this response back. That response has been given, put it back into the LLM. So it depends on what client that you are using. If you are building your own client, this one you may have to do all this orchestration, but if you are using any of these kind of already built clients, you don't have to do much of work. You can just go and give your query and attach this, you know, MCP configuration. It will figure it out what to do, right? Okay. Okay, now let me go back to the presentation. I think we'll have a few more.
Going back to your presentation,
Ah,
you had that earlier initial slide on the whole workflow.
ah. I know. I was very in the beginning. Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
So essentially, this is what is
This is what is happening, but we are not trying to do all these steps between. I think we are only giving you the tools there, and then we are getting the response at the bottom.
by using GitHub or plot tester, we are getting this automatically. But if we were to write code, we'll have to orchestrate this whole thing.
We need to do a little bit of work, but not lot of work like what we are doing in the function calling. I think towards the end of the exercise, I will show you how to do that piece also. I think it's like it's not that going to be that difficult, but you have to pass. You have to really connect that pieces so that, you know, like LLM understand that there is an MCP configuration, how to make use of it. Okay, now going back, let me quickly. Okay, so let us also look at this one more thing. Now it may be, you know, okay. So maybe I will hold this MCP inspector. I think we will do it after the next example, you know, and then, you know, okay. So I have one more example. Let me go to that example and then we will, like do the MCP inspector for that one, because there are resources and other things. So if you go to the financial analyst MCP, right? There is one more financial analyst MCP is there here. If you go to stocks server, okay. So here what I am trying to do is, we have a Y Finance as a API. So we are making use of that. I think if I given a ticker, it can give you a lot of different type of information, right? So what I have done is I have built few of the functions. I think this get company info, if you pass a ticker, it will give you all the information about the company, right? So now I have built a like tool called get company details, okay, and then I am giving this MCP tool, I am exposing, and then the ticker, if you give it, it will take a ticker and give you all the details, formatted string of company details, or an error message if the ticker is invalid, okay. So that is. Other one is get company prices. If you want a price, what are the price for last 1 month period, 1 month prices if I want it, I can give you the ticker and I give you the period I put default is 1 month, so that if you get prices, if you say for 1 month prices, I will get it. But I can pass, saying that last 3 months, or whatever, you can really do that. So it will give me all the prices of that particular ticker and then return it back. And okay, I have also defined a resource here. This is now, we have only talked about the MCP tools till point of time. Now look at this resource. Resource comes with a URI here. URI is a, within this area, it's like URI is like a standard way of representing, like HTTP is like HTTP : is HTTP URI. So FTP : mail dot : there are different type of URIs are there. Here you need to do something on your own, but it needs to be unique. It cannot be same. The same companies I cannot use multiple times, right? Companies : it will give you all the tickers, whatever is available in a JSON format. Okay. So what I am doing, I am opening a tickers.json file, reading all the tickers available, and then giving that as a file. So this could be even a document. It need not to be like a JSON file. It could be any other like document. So I have created another dynamic resource here. Company : if I give a ticker, it will give me the details of that company. I mean company and company name. It may not be giving a lot of other details, but company and company name, right? So if you look at here, this is also same thing. Company ticker equals to, I convert that into upper and then look it in the tickers, whatever that already have it, and then return that a JSON file, right? This is what is the company ticker, or if that is not found out, it is not found out. This can be replaced by anything else, but just an example that what I am doing, to have two resources that we created. One resource is just all the companies. You just give all the companies, tickers of all the companies. Another resource is just a particular ticker, whichever the ticker that you wanted. You can see whether the ticker is like is a valid ticker or not. You can use this to check that. Okay. Now, yeah, sorry, your question.
Yeah. So you had mentioned this earlier also, but resource and tool, like in most cases we are doing retrieval. Like if I was doing some action, then I understand it would almost always be a tool.
Yeah, you are right.
If I was writing or if I was doing a post.
Exactly. Action is a tool. Yeah.
But when I'm getting the company's data, like what the stock prices have been, that is essentially, in your case, you have put it as a tool.
Read only data is like your resource. I mean, you don't do any perform. It's like you take this data, attach it as a context, and then give it to the model, saying that okay, I'll show you a little bit, I think in the demo of this one. Yeah, but
In that case, the weather data could also have.
you can make as a resource. But resources, for example, let's assume you make that as a resource like this. You get a weather forecast based on a state.
Yeah.
I can say weather : /state, and if you give whatever the state you give it, it will get the weather and give attached to it. I think it is also doing.
Different resources, one for weather and one for alert, and that would have also.
That is also there, but it is a dynamically, that is something is changing. But assume that you are doing some action. For example, you are planning. Let us take you are planning. you are planning, adding a calendar, doing something else, then you cannot do with the resource. It has to be an action, right? So I mean, the example that what we have taken is could be a resource or could be a tool, but there is nothing. You are just getting the information. But based on this information, let us take check the weather tomorrow. If weather is good, you block my calendar for this time, for this, whatever the event, right? You are doing that. If you are doing that, then that blocking the calendar is an action that you cannot do it as a resource. It has to be a tool or a function where you tell that this is the calendar we are exposing, and it will go and block it.
So prompt is anyway very clearly different, but resource and tool, unless it is clear in action, those will be ambiguous.
Ambiguous means, you can. It depends on how you want to really do it, right? How you want to do it, but so I mean, it's all depend on the use case of how you're really orchestrating, right? You're just getting the weather and then you're stopping, nothing else is there, it's okay. But you're doing this in a multiple place. For example, it has to plan, right? You get this weather. It's not, resource is what you attach to an LLM and tell what to do. That's what it is. It's an application controlled. For example, if you are doing this as a complete autonomous, that's what I think. If you are doing a holiday planning includes a lot of different steps. I cannot give any resource attachment to the LLM at that point of time, right? So what I say is, I am there in Texas, and you go and plan my weekend, okay? Based on the weather in Texas, you see if the weather is good, you create a calendar event. If the weather is bad, you don't create a calendar event. You cannot give a resource at that point of time. It has to be a action, because it will go and execute all these things, right? I know this is Texas. First, it will go and get the weather information. Check whether is good. If the weather is good, then it will go and create the calendar event. Whether it is bad, it will not go and create the calendar event. Yeah.
If I had, say, again the same thing, but I put the weather, I put the list of restaurants, list of activities, I did 3 separate calls. These would then be tools that I
Tools. You cannot be a resource. Resource is going to be what you application provides it, right? Yeah. Okay. So I mean, this is a 2 resources, right? The another one is a prompt. That's a prompt template, as what we did. This is also based on the ticker. So analyze company stock based on this ticker. I have given all these things, and this is the same description of this function and all. Here also nothing. I am just giving the whole prompt, but ticker is a variable here. I am just putting this as a variable. Whenever the ticker really comes in, it will really substitute for this ticker and then give this prompt. I mean, this prompt is not that great prompt as such. This is just a analyze the stock of the company with ticker, provide insights on its performance, market trends, and any relevant, so on, so is there. But let us assume that sometimes these prompts can be a very big prompt where you are really time tested and see you want to get a proper response, you have really done it, right? In those cases, I can put the whole prompt, whatever is there. Keep all these variables, whatever that you want user to really give it, you put them as as an arguments to this function, and then the user passes all these things. You create the prompt and then just give the prompt, nothing else. You just give the prompt back to the user. But now I have defined in this particular example not only the tools, but there are resources and also the prompts. All of them I have defined it, right? And finally you return the prompt. So let us see how this is really going to work. I think I have similar fashion I have that now. If I go and look, okay, let me not here, let me go back to my Visual Studio Code only. I think I will do it here, okay. If I again look at my tools here, I see that I have a weather, and I'll similarly I have a stocks also. Stocks has these two functions or tools are there available to the stock. Let us see some of these things, right? Get for now it is, I have not given the ticker symbol. I have just given the Apple company name, but it knows, an LLM has knowledge. I think it, like it's I know for Apple AAPL is the sticker. That's why it is passed. This is the argument sticker, and this, this one. So now I'll execute it. Now it will tell me the whole company details of this particular, this Apple link, headquarters. This is formatted, but like this is the formatted of it. get me 3-month. Okay, I think now look at here. It knows that it has to get company prices. Ticker is IBM, and period is 3 months. Period is 1 month default I have given, but now it is passing 3 months. Now if I do that, it will go back and get all the prices. I think now, even though it is a very simple tool, but I think you can do a lot of complex this one from this this one with the LLM. Another example I can show you. I don't know whether it will do it here, but I think it was doing in my Claude desktop. But maybe I'll show the Claude desktop, because this is having more capabilities than this one. So I'll say compare the spelling mistake might be there, but it will understand, so no problem. So now it says that Claude wants to get the company prices for stocks, period, this one. Okay, allow once, and it'll ask me again for the other one, I guess. So yeah, so now I know that there are two companies. I want the prices to really compare, and then I have to generate the visualization. So now it can really do all the stuff. I think because the Claude has a lot of these capabilities of like trying to generate a code, execute that code, generate the visualization and all of them. Now it will create all of them. So now, I mean, because it's all possible because of the simple like API that I really, like the MCP server that I have really built, right? So it is given the performance for last 3 months. Look at this is public data, but let us assume that you have a lot of data within your company, right? So for different type of things, you want to really look at any of the trends and do it. I think it's very easy, simple to really go and do all this stuff. Yeah, I mean, it is created a file. I can even go and open in the Google Chrome also, but this is what it's showing me is, like, for example, this is the stock price comparison between IBM, Apple, normalized performance, base equals 100, IBM current price, whatever, all these details are there. I think, I mean, I can go back and modify the prompt to really figure it out what I really wanted. But simple, a tool which can really get the prices for a company based on their ticker. Now it's really see how can powerful financial things that I can really do it. I think within the company also I can do all these things if required. So
when you added the tool and you added the server on with GitHub Copilot, it showed the two tools. It only showed the two tools. So under what condition would it use the resources?
yeah, exact, good question. I think I'll come to that, right? So now, because it's a resource, then how do I really do it? I'll attach a resource, right? I go back here. Now MCP resources are there. I have now get company tickers all. So this is a resource that application control, which you have to attach as an application, right? So I can go to attach here. This is where I can see MCP resource. I can say again, if you go to attach, MCP resources, whatever is exposed are there here. I can look at get company ticker and get company. Now let us look at it. Now I say Apple, right? So this now attached stock server.py. I think this when that company sticker is attached here. Now I say get company details. I am not telling which company. I am just giving get company details. Now it should know that I am really talking in the context of Apple, and then go back and execute that, right? Oh, I think he's asking. Oh, something wrong here. I did not do. I think okay. I have attached this one. Sorry. Add context MCP resources. Get ticker. See, now it is attached here. AAPL, right? Now I say because as a context is I think is there, is automatically takes that context and then run it. So but that context could be whatever that I'm really getting from that resource. If it is a document, I can, I can do that. I think again, add context, go to MCP resources. This time get all company tickers. Tell me how many. This is a very toy example, but see, now I have given that resource which is all the tickers. It says that there are so many tickers are there. So this can be, like you can modify it. So the last one that we really have still is prompt, right? How do you get the prompt? Any questions so far?
No.
I think this is great. So now we have covered tools. Tools are automatically model controlled. This one I have given it as a context. I add a context and then do it. And the last one is prompt that we need to get it right. So there is a user, not here. No, not this one. Sorry. Okay, MCP stocks analyze. This is the prompt. It is already there for me, right? So now I click on it. It asks me run as a command and then inserts a text bit. It is asking for the ticker symbol, right? Here. See, now I got the whole prompt here. So analyze the stock company of the ticker symbol, provide all these things. This prompt is coming from nothing but my. If I go to stock server here, I have given this prompt, right? The same prompt in the ticker, it has replaced the ticker with ticker symbol and given it. So this could be any prompt that user. I mean, this is the way Visual Studio Code works, but it can be different for different type of clients how to really do it. But this is a user who wants to execute a prompt. I can really go and pick up any of the prompts that are already available for me and then start using it.
So if I think of, say, I have a MCP server that is doing analysis. Essentially, an analytics engine which is sitting on top of database. So I expose tools for accessing the data itself. But suppose I want it to be able to like the kind of the analysis that can be done, I want to standardize it and expose it as prompts so that the users who are not very conversant can still make informed decisions. I'll expose them as prompts.
That's right. That's true. Yeah. So basically, users, that the result is going to be, the expected result based on the prompt. You already know, you have really tested this prompt multiple times for different scenarios, and this template works very well. That's what you think you have figured out. Then you can expose that as a, like a prompt to the user, and user can fill in whatever the details that is there, and then they can, execute that. Yeah. So I think this is also same thing. Analyze the stock company and so on, insert performance. Yeah. Okay, I think I am done with this one. So probably it's okay. That is fine. I think I have. Oh, but I think I think I've been using it for a while a lot. I think looks like. No, I think I have already done this Copilot Pro. Sorry, okay, don't want to do it. Yeah, I think I'll figure it out. Okay, so now I think this is done, right? I think this is now done. So let me go back. Any questions so far? I think now we have looked at all the three different type of things and how to expose this and how we can really use them also in the Visual Studio Code. The same case even with the client, if you are building, you can do the same. I think I have a client here, and let me run that client. Okay, I am running a client here. Let me. Oops, sorry. Finally, sensitive MCP. Okay, this is STD, but look at this, client. I think this is a little different. I'll just want to show this case. So there is a package called MCP OpenAI. This is a package that integrated the MCP client as well as the OpenAI. Then you imported all these things, right? Now it is whatever that we are trying to do in the Visual Studio Code, we are trying to see if we can programmatically execute, right? Load.env, the basic, logging and all of them, logging MCP client config equals to this config. So here, if you look at it here, I am creating the client config in the same way that we have done it, same way that you have done it, right? Command UB, args, all these things, like whatever, run. I mean, because I think I'm, this one we can, it's okay. And then I'm creating a LLM client config object where I pass OpenAI key because we need the OpenAI key as well as the base URL. This is the URL that we really look at it, right? So this is the OpenAI configuration. And then LLM request config, you give the LLM, like request config and say model is this much. Now I'm creating an MCP client here. If you look at MCP client, it needs three things. MCP client config, which says that how to invoke this MCP server, like what are the command arguments and all of them, right? And LLM client config, basically there is an LLM, how to connect to the LLM, what is that, like URL, what is the API key and all of them. And LLM request config, basically this is like which model to really use and then execute your LLM commands. So once you have this client, I can define, like am I, async method anyhow here. I'm just giving this system and user message company details for Apple Inc. The same tools, the stock server, I create a, client connect to the server stocks, because this stocks is what we have really defined here, right? So okay, stocks is the server name here, and then you connect to the server, the client gets connect to the server, and then you take these messages and then process that messages and then you get the result out of it. So if you run this particular one, let's look at this. So what it is doing, it is trying to understand your prompt, making the same thing whatever that we have seen in the Visual Studio Code. You are trying to execute similar kind of thing using a script. Now it has given all the arguments and you got the response back. I think this is a arguments. It's a response is there in the markdown format. But if you print the markdown format, you will see the same thing. So again, quickly back here. Yeah. So there are three things that are required for MCP client. One is the MCP client config. It tells you what is the server that you are really trying to connect and what commands that we need to execute. And the LLM client config, which is nothing but which are the LLM that you are using it, and then what is the API keys and all. And the request config, it will tell you which model you are going to use it to make that request. And then you create the client, MCP client, and then you can invoke that client using the messages here. So this is the integration of LLM and MCP and how to execute the tools, right? So we are not here, I am not writing any code. If you look at here, I am only giving the configurations and then all these things, and finally when I give this one, it is as good as like a Visual Studio Code where I am really giving all these tools automatically getting executed. It will go and take these messages, the MCP client will figure it out, what tools have been wanted the LLM to be invoked, invoke the tools, give the response back, get the final response back to us. Okay, so I think this is another example of financial MCP client. Now let's get back to the presentation again. There are a few more things that we need to cover and then we'll get to the exercise. Now if you look at all these things, let us go back and look at this MCP inspector, right? So MCP inspector is like you have a lot of these like tool that servers that you develop, right? I think now if there is a problem, how do I really know where is the problem? How do I really test them? How do I really debug them, right? So MCP inspector will come very handy when you really want to debug what is really going behind this MCP. So there are two components here, MCP inspector client and MCP proxy. I mean, it's like a Node.js server. This is implemented in Node.js. Actually, it is not a Python program. That is the reason we need that npm installed. So, and the proxy is like a Node.js server. It really works as a connecting between the web UI and the MCP servers. Okay, that is what is the MCP proxy. So let's go back and see how you can run the MCP inspector. If I go back to my Visual Studio Code only. I think I have to do this piece, sorry. Okay, so now I take my terminal. Okay, I can run it here, right? So what I can do is so npx, you run this npx at model context protocol start inspector. It'll try to because you already having this npx. I think it will go and bring a page like this. This is the web browser, right? So if you look at it here, there are different, the same thing, right? All these things you can configure. stdio is there, uv. Sometimes this may not work. I think I'll better use which uv. And directory, I think I don't want this directory. Let me change it. I'll take this one. And then stock server.py. So this is the same command that we are really trying to give. Give the uv command and then directory, which directory to change, and then Python run stock. This is not just Python, but Python run stock. So now if I say connect, what will happen is it will try to execute this and then it will try to connect and then give me the oops. Oh, there is some problem. uv directory. I can use directly. Okay, so you can use directly also because you don't need a Python there. uv run stock server, because stock server I have put in such a way you have given the shebang command in the top, right? I think so it will work directly without this one. So if you look at here now, this will give me the whole like where I can look at all these things. What has really happened? I think when sorry, your specific whatever, yeah. I mean directory will change, that's all. Remaining everything is same. If I go back, sorry, I think I am going to relaunch this again. When I connect, when I really did the connect, I think there is an initialization here, right? If you look at method initialization, this is the client sending a request to the server saying that initialize. Response is, it will tell you what are the capabilities. So resources, tools, like I think all of them, server info. It will give you all this info, and then you look at all this differently, right? When I can say list resources. It will tell me what are the resources available to me. This is a get company details. I can also execute this. You can see here. This I think there is a problem. I cannot change this, but I can. Okay, so if you look at here, this is all the URI of that company, and then the what is the response is coming from that particular resource. So all these things are there here, right? So similarly, I can go and list templates. I have a get company ticker template. If I give read resource, it will give me the read resource ticker and all of them. So these two resources and templates, and you can also go to the tools here in the top. If you go to the tools, list tools, you get the list tools, and then what is the description for this particular but to get company details. If I go on ticker, I can execute directly from here and see whether how it's really working, right? I think there is a run button. This is, I don't know how to hide this. This is a problem. Okay. Run tool. Now when you run the tool, it will get the result, all the details of that company that you really get it here. So it's a give ticker, and then so this way you can like easily look at what is really happening. If you're really building a server, then you can use the model context protocol, this inspector, and then you can see what is really going on. You can run all these commands and then see what's really going on. Okay.
What are the server notifications?
Okay, good question. So good question. Let us go back to my this one. Let's look at it here. Look at this diagram, right? This is a little bit of the diagram. So what is happening is there are host, client, and server. When the host initiates a request to the client client initializes the session with the capabilities. That's what when you say initialize, it will respond with the supported capabilities, right? That is what is really happens. This is the initialization. The first thing that really happens when host ask the client to initialize it, client will send a request back to the server will respond back with all the capabilities. Now let us assume there is a client request, user or model initiated action, any action either user or model initiated, the request tools or resources, send it back to the server, the client, and you get the response back. Update the UI or respond to model. I think that's what is happening. This is the flow that is really happening. Now going back to the next one, server requests. Okay, I think we will talk about this a little bit. I think next chart is like there are some advanced things like sampling. For example, you want to pass, there is a big chunk of document, but you want to pass only the summarization of the document back into your prompt rather than the whole document itself. So an MCP server can request for a prompt execution on the host side. So it means MCP server will tell you, take this document and you summarize this and give the result back to me. That's what MCP server will tell. That request will go back to the host. LLM call gets executed there, give the whole document, gets summarized, the response comes back. Okay, that is if you look at request sampling, forward that to AI will respond back to the client, and then the client will send the response back to the server. There are cases where you may want to do this. I think it's not that is required in all the cases, but some cases it might be required. The notifications are, now we have a lot of these resources are right, resources, all these things. When some status has changed of these resources, how do, I have connected to MCP server, some MCP server, somebody has modified the resource now. So how do I know whether that resource has got modified or not? So now the notification gets from the server back into the to the MCP client and the host, saying that there is some resource has changed, the status has changed, please do it. So I think that is what is the notification piece. Is that clear, or any questions? Yeah. So now we will come back to this one, but let us talk about some of these things and then we will go to the exercise, last exercise. So there are few advanced things, that's what I told. Sampling is like, I mean MCP servers to request for LLM completions, that you can do it. And routes is another thing where, I mean, for particularly if you are building something, your local thing, you want to give access, you don't want to give the access to the whole thing. You can restrict what boundaries that it has to really work with. That is what is called the routes. I can set the routes saying that only work with documents folder, and then it can only work with the document folder, nothing else. Okay. So, and the last one is elicitation. I mean, here I think this is actually very famous for when you are doing the intent kind of things in the Alexa kind of world. You want to do something, but all the information is not there. So it's like stopping the execution in the between and ask for the users for the input. For example, you say that you plan me for my weekend this one, but you are not told which places that you really want to consider or what you really want to do. Some information is required, right? So that information, when you give this prompt and then we ask the LLM, the elicitation will tell you, if you don't have all the inputs to really complete this request, it will come back and tell you, oh, I don't know which location that you are really talking about it. Can you please give me the location? Then you can give the location. Like, it's like, make sure that you have all the inputs that is required to fulfill your request. I think this was this one case when all these Alexa programming people used to do intent and all, and I want to execute something to call an API, you don't have all the inputs. I think it used to ask back saying that, tell me this, tell me that, tell me that, and then you give the input and then it will try finally execute it.
The use case is clear, but how do we improve it?
I think this all depends. Okay, there are two different things, right? All these advanced concepts, some of these clients right now are not exposed as a capability. When they exposed, you can use it from the your Visual Studio Code or Cloud Desktop and all. But whereas in the programming, you can still do that. You can say the elicitation, you can enable it and then you can run it. Then if the information is not there, it will keep on asking for you those kind of things. Yeah.
So if as said, like the context was not there, that this is,
Not the context.
but
There are some inputs that are required to complete your request if it are not there, and then they are defined clearly.
get weather alert requires the state. When state is not there, then
It can ask for the state, and then you can give the state, and then it will do. It's a get me company details. I am not given the ticker. And it can ask you which company or which ticker that you really want to do it. Yep. So I think this is what we have talked about. It. The same thing is tabulated in a fashion. But now a little bit on the streamable HTTP versus SSE, right? I mean, for streamable HTTP, there is only single endpoint. You will do, it's like any other HTTP REST API that you do, post, get and all, you can do it bidirectional. But whereas there are two connections are there in the SSE. One, you post a request, and then actually even that is a direction is only from primary server to the client. Client to the server is only post request, and then the response comes back. It's a unit. I mean, it's not, direction is not bidirectional, both sides. And MCP session ID is there. That's why it is called a stateful, but limited or no states in the SSE.
but when we started the SSE server for this thing, for one of the examples, it still had a session ID, so that is not being used.
But it is not stateful and stateless is like it knows the state like what is there. But I think something to keep track of that, right? I think that is not there in the SSE side. So I mean, there could be a session ID, but something has to keep track of that session of what is really going on, what is there, what is the current state and all of them, which is not there. And generally the performance is much better in the streamable HTTP versus compared to SSE. Sorry? Data in the sense like I think a number of requests that you can make, number of requests per second, number of requests that you can really do it kind of thing, that request response time. I mean, obviously streamable HTTP is the recommended. I think this is SSE is a legacy which is there. Initially it was there, but now it is not been recommended or not like advised to use it. If you are starting a new project, better you go with streamable HTTP and not the SSE. I think authorization is very important. I think it is right now, authorization is an optional. I mean, if I really have a server, anybody can go and connect to it and then get the data. It's not that I need, this one. So which is, sorry. So, but authorization is optional right now. But what is the way that you can really do it, or what is the scenarios that you may really want to incorporate authorization? Authorization is like now, I think there are knowledge available. Primary is OAuth is enabled, you can do the OAuth kind of thing. It's like, I mean, example is, very high level example, probably if you understand OAuth is good, but the high level example is, let's take you ask for some service at your house, somebody want to repair, like a, like your, water filter is, you want to repair it, right? So you go and call the customer support and tell them that, like I want this is repaired. They will say that we will send a person. But how do you know if the right person is really coming to your house to really do it or not, right? What you do is, they will say that, okay, this person will come with a company tag, but this is the ID that you will having it. This is the information I will give it to you is what this customer support will tell. When the person comes to your house, you will verify whether this is a person or not. You will verify with this ID. If this is the right person, then you will allow him to really do the repair, otherwise not, right? It's a simple example. Similarly, OAuth is like that. There is a provider, and if the OAuth token that you really send along with this, and then it verifies the OAuth token is coming from the right person. If the right person, you allow, otherwise it will not allow. So that's a high level concept of it. We don't want to get into the details of how is OAuth, but there are a lot many more things.
If I wanted to implement it, and it is a resource which needs authorization, I'll do a login or authorization loop at the beginning, and the authorization token back to the session, to the host, and the host will keep track of that session.
No, login is okay, but login is a little different, right? Login, yeah.
Let's say I have this authorization token, and I keep it, and then every request I also send it so that the MCP server can use that.
Exactly, it knows that this is the person. It will cross verify with the provider. The provider is the one who gives the token, and then you take this token and go back to the server. Server will check with this token, go back and check with the provider again, is this the right person, this is the okay. If it's okay, then it allow the request.
The server will use the token every time to verify that.
Verified, yeah. You need to have the token every time. And this token also lived for some time. It is not that is perpetual for any time. It is lived for only for some time. If you generate a token, it is valid for 1 hour, it will 1 hour. After 1 hour, again it will expire, you have to generate a new token and send it again. I mean, there are a lot of things that are there as part of this implementation in general, but that is a recommended mode of implementing it. So when you are going to do it is your server accesses user specific data like emails, documents, something like kind of important information that you read. You need to audit who performed which actions, right? You want to know who. Otherwise you don't know. If there is no authentication, there is no authorization, then you will know who is doing this activity. And also sometimes there is APIs that are executing, and then that needs this one. And in enterprise environments, definitely strict access controls are there. That's why OAuth is implemented. And also if you want to implement rate limits and all kind of thing, right, where you say that this user can only execute this many number of requests per second, like kind of thing, or per minute. So then rate limits that we can really impose. If you know who is really connecting, then you can do that rate limits. Oops, sorry. Security risks associated with MCP. One is a prompt injection. I think this is the common things, and then credential exposure. Obviously, we are communicating between the host and the server. There is a chance that if there is any malicious things are there, credentials can get exposed. This is one of the major thing, unverified third-party tools, tool poisoning, right? Basically, somebody has written in such a way that their response not only contains the data back, but there is something else. I think we will see some examples on the context bloating. I think this is another problem. It's not a security, but risk. They say not a security. See, what happens is like when you attach all these tools to the model, you are attaching the information to it, right? There are 2 tools, it's okay. There are 3 tools, it's fine. But if you have 100 tools you are attaching, there is a lot of information that you are doing it, right? And then that may be information is so much, but you may not be using all the 100 tools. So, but you are attaching all the 100 tools to the LLM to really make use of it, because it need to know upfront what tools are available. so that it can really call the right tool. So, and even pruning of what is the request responses that really coming between these two, all these things, right? There's so much of information which can really bloat the context. So I think we need to be careful when you're designing these things. We need to be careful enough. I think, why do we need all the tools, if it is required? There are some design principles, probably single responsibility kind of thing. For example, these are some of the best practices, right? Single responsibility principle. I think even when you develop like a function and all, make sure that it is really what is that is going to do, it only do that kind of thing.
What is server?
Server, yeah, server. Yeah. And design for the agent or LLM. I think now keep that, like when you design something, keep that it's not just that human is going to call it, agent can also really call these things. So an LLM is going to really execute it. So you need to keep that in mind when you are really developing the MCP server. And unimportant is basically, even if multiple times you request for the same request, you should get the same result. It's not that each time I get a different result, then it's going to be very, very difficult. So,
but idempotent would be only if it is a non-LLM service, the non-LLM.
No, LLM is not there, but there is no LLM is there in the MCP server, right? When you give a request to server, whatever the response that comes back should be that. It's not that each time I get a different response. Excuse me, yeah. And strong authentication, obviously it's required, least privilege principle. I think we should give only whatever is required for that to have, like for example, you need access to certain things, you only give that access what are the least privilege, right? This is a very typical concept in the enterprises. I think they don't really give you all the privileges when you start. I think they give you very minimal privilege that is required to do your job. Here also the same thing. And containerization is very, very, like important piece in the sense, look at right, if you build a container and you run your MCP, like a server within that container, even if somebody really connects in all of them, nothing is exposed out of your whole client, right? The container is only that piece that is what gets exposed. So security wise, I think is going to be very, very, good if you really can have the containerization. Otherwise, you have, there is a chance that you are exposing more than what is really required.
So if I have 4 or 5 different, so I have a workflow that I'm converting into a agentic workflow using MCP. Would you suggest that I have probably, like, if there are a lot of tools that I'm building, I break this up so that I have 2 different parts or multiple parts where you have only a limited number of tools at each stage, because I know the workflow and what tools are required at what stage. So, for example, if there's a write operation at the end, that is not required at the beginning when I'm just reading from the database. So, should I just separate this into separate workflows and orchestrate it from outside? Would that make sense?
Yeah, so now there are multiple combinations here, right? I can build all of them in one server, expose everything in one server and then done with it, but which is going to be not very efficient. But now you build multiple servers. But even, I cannot build for one tool, one server, right? I think there is another, I think there is, both are two extremes. So you need to figure that out, how you are taking this context across the LLM application. Not only one application, but if you need the same thing. For example, I mentioned in the Oracle use case where there is a bug database, right? I think it's been used across many different areas. Everybody really uses in different engineering teams use the bug database to really figure it out what bugs are there, to find more information about the bugs and all. I can give a UI, but UI is going to be, you have to go and search and then figure it out. But this is going to be more of an, not only getting the bug, but also giving additional information about the bug, right? So now you only expose that as a separate MCP server, only tweaking the bugs. Let us say you want to now use case where I have a bug, okay, analyze the bug and try to create a Jira story for that one to make sure that, people start working on it. Okay, you take top 5 bugs which are very important, critical in nature, analyze them, identify the top 5 bugs, and then go and create Jira stories for the next iteration. I'm really working on it. This is what is my task. Now there are 2 things involved here. One is the bug database, other one is your Jira. This cannot be integrated into one. Both should be, complete functionality is different. Both two different servers. One will analyze the bugs. The other one will create the Jira stories.
Right.
So
This is kind of what I was thinking about, but also the fact that if each of these MCP servers expose, say, 50 tools or 100 tools, that maybe too many things. So I might also separate them, orchestrate the process separately, so that I take the output of the first part, get the top Jira stories, stories, and then use it to the Jira.
yeah. So we need to look at it. I think these are all different things. So for example, another thing is, let us take you are interacting with the database, right? What I can do, I can write an SQL, right? I can write an SQL, get me, like inventory of this item. I can, write an SQL to get the item and then expose this as a tool. Is that the good thing to really do it? In my perspective, it is not, because you are not using the LLM capabilities. It's directly just executing an SQL and giving these items. But what we should do is it build in such a way that you expose those things which LLM can make use of to rebuild that is SQL. For example, tell me what tables are available and give me all the tables inside the your this one, and then tell me schema for a particular table. Okay. Now if you have these things, when you go back and tell, I want to find out something, it can internally go back, run these tools to get the information, and then try to analyze that, and then try to build the SQL, run that, and then get the response. So that you don't have to really do that. I think we need to think through when you're building these tools. That's why you need to keep agent or LLM in, like in perspective when you're building these tools. Yeah.
Sorry, can you go to the previous slide? So, like, context floating is always going to be there, and we need to have suppression of concern at some level.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is a trade-off between where to draw that line, right? I think so, but I think we need to be what I think the point here is, like, you're developing this, you may not be aware. I think you keep on doing all these things, adding, okay, let me do 100 tools, what is there, like I think I have all 100 tools are there with this, I think let me make use of it, whatever is there. But you are not understanding that when there is this many tools are there, when you initialize this one, all this information is going back to LLM as a context. Each call will really have all these tools information, right? Which is going to be a problem. Yeah, you will end up paying a lot of money, unnecessarily. Okay, so I think that's majority of this one. There is one exercise towards the end. I think we'll go to that one. There is one this one which I saw in some blog. What it says is there are a lot of builders, but there are no users. So there are a lot of people. I think that is actually one way. Initially, if you look at those GitHub repo or MCP registry and all, there are so many servers are there, but I don't know how many people are really trying to use it. But after, like trying to figure it out, it's not that the external whatever is there, because of the governance and security, it may not be very popular that people are using all these tools which are available outside. But there are a lot of companies which are using this internally to build their MCP servers within their, enterprise system. So that is the major use case than the, like trying to really connect to an MCP server outside. And a lot of these things are, your context is within your enterprise specific, right? I think what are the databases that you have, all what documents that you really have is all enterprise specific, so you don't get this information from the outside. So there are a lot of use cases where people are building, MCP servers within the enterprises. Okay, so I think there are references, and then this is the final this one. But anyhow, before going to this let me. Okay, so this is the exercise. I think, in the interest of time, I don't know whether we will be able to do from everything. There is one document that is there in the shared folder, the MCP project, the PDF is there. Maybe we can have a look at it. But what I'll do is I have created one more repository. You can clone that repository. If you go to the same, GitHub repo in my repositories, there is a MCP _project instead of MCP demo. So I can clone that. I can show that. I think the whole exercise here is, we have a set of schema and tables in the database, and then we would like to user to really query the information from these tables, using the natural language queries. So I don't want to write an SQL, but I'll give get me this kind of information, I think LLM should be able to create the SQL, execute the SQL, and give me the result back. So that is the intention. If you go back to my GitHub repo, I think this is the S-Developer and MCP underscore project. If you can clone this repo, I'll quickly walk through what is there in this repo, and then you can maybe let me open this in the Visual Studio Code itself.
MCP underscore project.
Right, yeah. Okay, so now I think there is a, I mean, you have to download some zip file, like I think I've given in the link in the PDF document. Maven, or even it is there in the readme here also. If you go back and look at the readme here, so this is the database here in the GitHub repo also. It is there. You can download the zip file and then put that into the data, create a data directory, and then unzip that into the data directory. And then there is a CSV to Parquet file is there. You just run this file, it will create the Parquet format. So CSV is little kind of expensive, but Parquet is much more like efficient in terms of reading. I am using a DuckDB here. DuckDB is like a SQLite kind of advanced version of SQLite kind of thing to really do it. So I have one server called dbutils MCP server. I'll quickly go through this, what I am trying to do. Okay, so here I am using fast MCP, and then obviously I think once you really download clone the repo, you should run UV sync so that you will get all the dependencies installed. One of them is DuckDB, and MCP server, this is the way we do it. But I am defining a function called to get connection here. Excuse me, I mean you want to wait for something to set up. I think I can wait and then we'll do it here. Yeah, no problem. Carry on. So is done upon MCP project, and then download UV sync, and then download the data files, and then unzip them into the directory, and then run the script. Which one will take time? Zip file? Huh? No, it will not take much time. This is not that huge data. It is I put in the data and unzip that also. Unzip that file. Yeah, you should see both CSV as well as this files in the data directory. Is it taking time to download the file? No.
Download is done. I haven't done UV.
UV sync. But when you run UV Python, automatically it syncs up the environment also. I think that, fortunately UV is very fast, and then all these packages you already installed, I think it will not download again. I think it will use it from the cache, I guess. No, you can go to the data directory UV run and then CSV to Parquet. Go to the directory and then run directly UV data directory.
I have to unzip that.
Zip. Where you are in the base directory or in the? No, you can run from there only. I think. Go to UV CD data.
UV run.
CSV. That's all. Enter. Oh, okay. No. I think, okay. Oh, sorry. It's like, no, UV run, you do it. UV run CSV packet. Enter, just enter. It needs two arguments. UV run packet hyphen. No. I think two files, that's all. Orders.csv. CSV space orders.parquet. Sorry, I think I did not put a shell script.
What is the
Data directory, you are there, not there, in the,
and orders? Okay.
yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, I think you have to convert all of them.
Yeah.
There's 4 files are there. Sorry, I think I have to convert that. Yeah, so I think the CSV to Parquet file is a. Let me for the people on the. Let me do this. CD data and then unzip maven okay, this is already done. Okay, all UV run Python. Yeah, you have to convert all of the files actually. Orders. No, you don't have to do anything. That's all. Parquet files is enough. So we have to convert all the. I have that.
No, I'm saying there is a data dictionary file also. That I don't have to convert.
You don't have to do anything. Leave it. There is some schema.txt, right?
No, there is this data. Maven fuzzy factory data dictionary.
No, we don't need. I think only we need that CSV files. That's all. There are. We don't need even the data dictionary. Yeah, we don't need that. Orders, products, website pages, and website sections. These are the things. So now let me quickly go through this. This one. So what are we trying to do? This is a DuckDB. Maybe I just don't want to get into all the details, but we establish this is a function to connection. Get a connection, right? So once you have the connection, what I am trying to do is, because this is not a physical database, I am creating the views. Create temporary view, orders, select star from this Parquet file. Reading from that file. I think this is create the views so that when I create a connection, also create these views. And then views are available for me so that I don't have to, worry about that. I don't have to read every time. So And yeah, I think this is what happens in the DB connection. As soon as you make a connection, it not only make the connection to the DuckDB, but also create these views and keep it ready for you. Now I have two tools that I have really defined, only two tools, simple tools. Run SQL. You give an SQL query, it will run, it will get a connection, it will run the your query, return the what are the result that comes from the return array is a JSON. I am converting that into a JSON and then returning it back to JSON. Now another thing is, if I want a schema for a particular table, get table schema, table name, and then if you run that table, you will get again get the connection, and then describe that table, because I have already created a view. The view available. Pragma table info will give me all the table info. That also I will convert this JSON and send it back to the user. So there is only two simple tools are there. One is get a schema for a table, and if you give a run SQL, you can run the SQL. That's all. So, and how do we really make use of it? Now this is a this one, but right now I have created an agent here. If you go to that, there is a file called agent here. This is a LangChain agent, but what we are making use of, you are using LangChain MCP adapters client. There is LangChain MCP adapters package is there, which is a integration between the LangChain and the MCP adapters, right? If you are creating an agent in LangChain, how do you enable the tools of MCP with the integrate with the tools of MCP with the agent? That's what it really does. Okay. Now you need a multi-server MCP client config. I created a name as dbutils. It is similarly similar kind of that mcp.json, but we are giving all these parameters like dbutils, transport is stdio, what is the command, and then the args. Similar whatever that we have given to GCD, this is the client configuration that we have defined. You can see that agent.py there, right? File in that.
That is fine. UV sync did not work. I will just install it.
But you ran that CSV to Parquet file, right? Already it worked. You are not in the directory, I think. You are in a different directory, by any chance.
No, I probably did that in the subdirectory.
No. There is nothing like subdirectory. The UV works only for that. Wherever the project.toml file is there, only it works there. Yeah. So multi-server client config, I think that we created, and what we are trying to do is we run this client.get tools. It will get all the tools available in the MCP server. In this particular case, there are only two tools. One is run SQL, other one is get table schema. Right? Now I create an agent. This is directly React agent in MCP. LangChain agents, simple React agent. You create an agent with the model and you give the tools. The tools that we really got from like MCP client, we are giving it the tools to the agent. So now if I want to run this agent with any of the message, I created one simple function called run agent. What I do is I will give like response equal to async IO, run invoke that agent with the messages, and then there are two messages to this particular input. One is system message, other one is user query. Both of them I will put into one into the role assistant, and content is system, and then role user and the content is query. You put this, and then whatever that you run it in the stack of messages, the last one will have the response from the LLM that we will return it back to the as part of this function. Okay. So now if you look at this one, this is the way it really works. In the main code, if you look at it, test query is list top 5 products that have maximum returns. There is if you look at this data, there is order returns are there, refunds returns are all there, right? Order returns will be there somewhere. Yeah, refunds basically, right? These are the ones which are refunded. So you have order refunds are there. So now list top 5 products that has maximum returns. So this is a simple query, but this is, if you have to really do it, I have to go and write an SQL and do all the stuff, right? So system message, I am giving URL and so on, so on, so, and then now I am passing this to response and then printing the agent response. Let's see how this is going to work. I think I'll back. So now this is a fast MCP. It will tell you, what is really, whenever you really connect it, it will connect to that and then do this, right? What happened? I think I have to wait for some time, but sorry. Yeah, it runs. I think I have to wait. I think I did something different. So it has to start the server first and then execute the command. It will take a bit of time. So you got the output, right? Oh, you put OpenAI keys also, right, in the same thing, or you
Just copied the environment file from.
you need to have that, otherwise this will not work. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I think I am not sure what is going on here. Okay, so now I have a simple Streamlit app here, okay, so I have built a simple Streamlit app. I think the way you can run it is you can take uv run streamlit streamlit app.py. Okay, so and then you can give any of these queries, right? I think list top product that has maximum returns. Yeah, so you see there is a response here like the query executed successfully, and then these are the top returns. I mean, I've given some sample queries, but you can add. This is a simple Streamlit app that I think it will tell you if you run the query. I think it will go back, and generate the results back and then tell you. So month wise, number of orders placed by month wise. I think this is the chart. So I mean, look at this. I think simple this one, but I think is very powerful, right? I think if you have something in your organization where you have a database and then you don't want users to really write the SQL queries, I think this is going to really change a lot. But the reason here is the agent which is really working, it will try multiple things. I think there's a React agent there. I think here you may not see all the things what is really happening, but agent will really make a call. Let us assume there is a failure, right? Assume I have not told which is the database that I am using it. I think dialect that he has used is for PostgreSQL because the underlying is DuckDB. So something is not going to work, right? When the response comes back, understand that there is a failure in the SQL, then again it will modify the query and send it back till it gets success or whatever. No, it will keep doing that. It's not that the agent will give one query and then it will really come back. I think the React agent, there is a system feedback loop there. You go back, execute something, observe, like whether there is a feedback is okay. If it is not okay, then you can go back into the, do it. So that way, you may not see all these things that what is happening but the agent is taking care of a lot of things, like even, trying to make sure that proper, this one is there. Any questions? You have any other things? Yeah.
I'm just trying this out. Would you take, text to query is anyway a separate problem itself. In this kind of case, you will run normal reverse one testing or use a local testing. How do you test this?
Yeah, I think you need to testing. Yeah, testing is another piece. If you are really developing something, I think the thing here is your database. You need to really find out those queries that are going to be giving you the a determined result, right? Deterministic result. You can go back and run them and then test it. But I think we need to take this with a pinch of salt. That this is not going to be a LLMs. There is no guarantee that you will get the 100% right response at the end of the day. I think that is a very very important piece. Otherwise, this you can do a lot of this testing. Even if it is 98% accurate, there is still 2% chance that there is something can really go wrong. And when it goes wrong and what query it goes wrong, we don't know. So we need to be careful enough what kind of decisions people are really doing it. I think there is a human in the loop is always required in this particular scenario. But some of them are very clear, right? I know whether the answer is really coming. For example, some of these things will understand. I have the knowledge, business knowledge of what it is, whether I can validate that it is right or wrong, those kind of things, right? So that way, I think it's okay. Or you can also do that, right? I think I have not done, but please give me. I don't know whether it will work or not, but let me check. Give me the SQL used to I have not tested what I am doing on the fly, but I am not sure whether it will give me that query or not, but let us see. Okay, I think there is not given the SQL because it may not have that, but it said this groups your orders by month. It gives you some explanation of how this SQL is generated. Or yeah, there is a SQL date trunk month and all is there here, right? Yeah. Oh, okay, I think I have used and yeah, I mean, but it may be if they really want to use it, people can ask for the SQL. But I think if they have the knowledge of writing the SQL, then it's okay. But at least that gives you a little bit of confidence that you can really do it. But at the end of the day, we need to look at the criticality. If there is a critical decisions being made out of this data, then we need to have the user should be having that thing. So. Okay, so meanwhile we have time. I think what we can do is there is I'll also run with you. There is a quiz thing in this one. If I have to run this using this one, otherwise it will not. You can also try it by yourself. I think you can do it. So it will just sorry. Yeah, I think there is a notebook LLM that I have created a notebook. I think that is where is having. I think you have all the information there also. Let us look at the hint. Think about which part of the system acts as the bridge to specific data sources like local files and memory. It is MCP server. Which of the following best describes the operational difference between the STD, IO and HTTP transports in MCP? Sorry? That is right. Correct. According to I think this is okay. I mean, this is basically what is the focus now. 2026. Okay, I think this is a little tricky. But I have not covered this in there. But when you developing with fast MCP, what is the consequence of calling the MCP.run method within an asynchronous Python function? Actually, this itself is asynchronous. That if you really do one more asynchronous call in the call, it will give maybe let us say a hint. Reflect on how Python handles multiple attempts to engine the async IO in the loop. Basically, it gives an error. I think an error will occur because it's like it is a sorry. MCP differentiate between resource and tools. Resources are read-only data and tools are functions that can be invoked by program actions. During the fast MCP workshop, a weather MCP server message was proposed, which yeah, that's true. What is the known limitation of the MCP server auto reload feature introduced in version 3.0? Because this is not covered, but I think maybe you can look at the consider the trade-offs of to allow network server to restart seamlessly without maintaining presence. What is that? What is the known limitation? The server cannot watch directories other than the current route. No, it requires the manual installation of UPEG. No, bidirectional features like elicitation. I think this is the one. So you will not be able to use these things, like in the this one. Bidirectional features like elicitation are unavailable during the reload mode. The model context protocol is frequently compared to other standards. How does it purpose differ? Yeah, LSP standardizes interactions with the language specific tools, whereas MCP standardizes the interactions with external systems and AI apps. Using the fast MCP CLI, which command would you use to run a server, weather server page? Okay, so the fast MCP run weather MCP, I think we have not used it, but fast MCP also you can directly run. We don't need a Python. Fast MCP run weather service.py will work. I think this is the one. I mean, with pandas is basically if you want to enable some libraries, we can do that. In the fast MCP framework, what is the role of the custom route declarator? This is also not talked in the this one, but this is a little. Actually, it allows the additional non-MCP web endpoints such as health checks and HTTP server. That's one. Yeah.
So things which are not tools, resources, or tools which are not things which are not central to the tool. They have to be serverless, right?
Sorry, can you come again?
So you said health.
These are nothing to do with the this one. Yeah, I think still, yeah, custom route. I think that's what they say, custom route. It is not a specific to MCP tools. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think this is having all the like all the information here. And if you close that quiz, you will see the LLM notebook. I mean, right now I given the access to everyone. I think you can go and play with it for some time before I really take it. So I have uploaded all these things. I think this is the way you can, it gives you. I mean, if you want to quick summary of it, it can generate you the flashcards, or you can generate its own quiz again, kind of thing, and it will give you presentations, mind maps, all those things. It can even generate a video also out of all these things, based on the resources. I mean, you can do a lot of research with this if that is something is required. But even if you have a question, you can say, you can ask the question and then it will try to respond back as like a simple RAG kind of system also. I mean, it will go and look at these resources and then try to answer the question, for you. Okay, so what is the database user? Okay, yeah, I think in this, I mean, I was just simply putting that even if you want to look at what are the failed queries, it can tell you, it's tracking all the history also, right? What query you have executed in the application, what query really you have executed, and what are the responses that we are really getting it. All these things is tracked. I think just a very simple, but in case if you want to know, I think it's very, very important that what is the user has given, what kind of result that you really got it. You can use the different logs, and basically it's the point of observability. So when the MCP server is running, I think when you're really having integrated with LangChain agent and all of them, there are areas where you can really write all these things. What is the user is, giving the input, what tool execution really happened, and how the response, and then where it is there. All of them you can track it. Okay, is there anything that is left out in my presentation? Let me quickly look at it. Okay, I think pretty much that's all. Nothing else is there.
Thank you.
So any questions that you have? Anything?
No, I think I still need to try out and figure out differences like tools, resources, those concepts I need to make everything progress. And the part you covered at the end, roots and all, elicitation. Those roots, as I understand, is basically the sandbox. Like
Kind of. Yeah, that's right. So it's like you're, yeah, you just put the boundary so that it will not go on, look.
notification is basically a part of the mechanical process of running MCP. So that
Yeah, I think if you look at that MCP inspector, no, there are notifications keep on coming in. If there's something changes underlying, it will notify that there is something has changed. That's it's a communication between the.
so I can try doing that. Like how does it change over time? It's more about trying it out and
Yeah, I think you have to, yeah, we need to do that. Yeah, okay, great, thank you.